Welcome, everybody, to Generation Dan, where the picture of me there was actually pretty good. I'm Atlas Novak. I'm your millennial. Who else is here with me?
I am Dino, the genetic marvel, who I am basically a young pup on this episode. This is fantastic. I'm living my dream here. This is so good.
It's
so
true.
good.
And back by popular demand is my dad, Roger Novak, from the Friendship in Your 20th episode, and the guy he was talking about, Gregg. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm sorry I couldn't bring the horses, but they're here in spirit.
Fantastic.
Gregg just had his birthday last week.
Oh,
He was very dapper.
happy belated birthday.
The big 7-7.
7-7.
Oh, man.
Man, okay, so Roger, I asked you this before. Gregg, I'm always been like, man, I'm turning 44 this year. Okay. Now, for me, every time I've hit another birthday and I'm like, man, I'm still here. Like, this is anomalous at best. Somebody's not doing their job somewhere. It's like, so at 77, does that go away where you're going like, I apparently am going to be here forever, like whether I like it or not, or is it still surprising?
Well, you know, the main thing when you're 77, you're hoping that pain that you feel at times will not be there forever. Other than that, you don't really think about, yeah, but that is a good point. You act as if you're, going to be there forever.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you, as you get older, you still think you're like in your 30s when you're looking out.
Yeah.
Then when you look in the mirror, there's this old guy looking back.
Oh, what the hell is that? Yeah, no,
who is that?
So just so you guys are aware, last Thursday, me, my wife, and another couple, we went to a dinner mystery theater, which we had never done. And I'm like, sure, let's go.
Oh, we're going to one of those next week.
Yeah.
The only problem was there was a murder. It was my hairline. I hadn't put any product in my head. I put my hair back and this was just flat and it just poofed in the back. And I was like, I'm bald. That's it. The ship has sailed. It's done as of May 23rd, 2024. I no longer have hair. So I just shaved my head fairly close, left the beard going. I'm like, all right, that's it. I'm a bald man. That's how I identify. And I'm like, son of a bitch. I'm disappointed, but at the same time, fuck it.
You can now use that new Norelco razor. It does your whole head for you. I love that.
I mean, it's a worthwhile venture, and I'm definitely going to start. I'm going to see if I can get some lightning bolts across the side because I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'm bald. Who cares?
Yeah.
So. But at the same time, it's like I already have an Asian wife with big tits, so I'm like, nobody can say anything like, "Oh, you're bald," and I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'm married to an Asian with big tits.
That's
she'll always look out. She'll always look young. I'll always look old. It's fine, right? Yeah. It's one of those things.
There was some point with me a couple of years ago where I finally said, "Oh, who cares what I look like? I'm just an old geezer."
Yeah.
I had a friend who was a video director. And he'd always hit on the young actresses, but he said as soon as he hit 50, he became invisible.
Yeah.
You couldn't see him anymore.
100%. Yeah. I feel like that's the thing is like, I'm at a stage right now. So Gregg, you're not aware of this. So I've lost 250 pounds. So I was 500 pounds and now I'm 250 pounds. And it's weird because I'm like, I'm turning 44. I'm in the best shape of my life. It's not like I'm in great shape, but it is the best shape of my life. So it's like, So it's a great
skewed
thing.
Data is what that is.
It's definitely skewed. Like everything's still shot. Like I'm still walking out. I'm like, it's like I got a new shiny coat of garbage on this falling piece of rust. It's fine. But definitely one of those things where I'm like, I'm looking around and I'm seeing young people and I'm like, oh, you don't know how nice it is to be young and invincible. And you just walk up to people and they're like, oh, nice to meet you. If I walk up to people, they're like, this is a murderer and or a senior citizen that is now lost. And I'm like, oh, that's fine. That's
or
good.
both.
Or both. Very possibly both. Very possibly both.
I had a moment kind of like this. So last night I had to chaperone the prom for the school that I work at. So I had the ultimate like seeing the youngins through the outside experience there. Like, for example, I was in the bathroom using the bathroom and 4 boys come in. By the way, for some reason, In the outside world, guys go to the bathroom by themselves. At prom, they're all just be like, "Oh my god, you want to go to the bathroom together? Let's go to the bathroom together." So like 4 of them come in, and they're 4 of my students from my English class, and they're just talking about this flask that they have. And then I came out of the stall and was like, "Just give me the stupid flask." I don't want I hate being this person, but having to be like, just go, and then just left.
At the same time, like knowing what I know about teachers now, right? Because listen, when you're young, you always look at teachers and you're like, oh, they're mature people. You're like, no, they're just trying to pay their bills. They don't give a shit. They're like, I'm just trying to have a good time. And if anything, if that story was me, I'd be like, so I'm supervising prom. I'm in the bathroom. I've set up lines of Coke. A bunch of kid walks in. Everything goes off that's how I would tell that story. And then you're like, I was responsible and told them to give me the flask. And I'm like, bro, I would have confiscated the class, but also I would have been like, hey, just so you guys know, look, I'm of age. I don't give a shit. And just
now the compromise was I wasn't going to tell anybody. It was just like, leave it at that. So yeah. And then,
when Gregg and I were younger, they would push you apart when you were trying to dance with them close,
I can't remember.
Make you leave a little separation.
Leave room for Jesus.
Room for the Holy Spirit, as they say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what? It's funny because at this point in time, there's a very good chance that teacher's like, hey, you guys should go make a baby. Just go, just young people are out of control. They're just like, oh, you guys are just gonna have a marriage ceremony at prom as well. Just get it all out of the, just boom, off you go. Finished.
Nah.
I don't know.
It was fine. There wasn't really any crazy stuff besides that, but it's one of those things where if you're the kid and you have a flask, you shut the fuck up about the flask. There's a guy outside the bathroom whose job it is to watch you and make sure it's not a fire hazard or whatever. Because that was one of the things I had to do. But if there's no one there, it's not like they disappear. They're probably using the bathroom.
Right. Here's a question. When you guys, so Gregg, Roger, when you guys went to prom, would they do things like, oh, once you're inside, you can't go out to your car and stuff like that? Because I remember when I never went to my prom because my parents that's where people get pregnant. You stay away from those people. It's fine.
You were almost a prom night dumpster baby.
There's a good chance. That's for sure. But they would be like, you can't go to the car. And you're like, because the classic move is to have some booze out the car, go, do a couple shots, come back in and be like, I'm the coolest guy because I got shots in my car, right? That's just makes sense, right?
They had the same rule. Once you were in, you couldn't leave unless that was your only time, right?
Bro, I would have oh man.
We never had that at my school. We just went in and out.
Yeah.
He was just responsible young people. Damn it.
You guys were lucky.
Yeah.
I'd like to tell you a story about Artie Hoffmeyer. This was the junior prom that I attended. It was for Miami Edison. And I had this date with this beautiful blonde named Leah. I can't give her last name unless she, file a lawsuit against me. So it was in a hotel in Miami Beach, I think the Americana, in a big ballroom. And Artie Hoffmeyer had this guy who was the chaplain for the senior class. His name was Jim. And he was dressed, like he was the chauffeur driver dressed in a black suit. So, we're all sitting around this table and laughing and everything. And Artie pulls out a huge cigar and starts puffing away on it. And everyone's going, oh, Artie, you're so cute. And then he pukes on the table and things radically changed at that point. So that's all I can remember about, the proms.
That's so funny.
Interestingly, Gregg and I both grew up in Miami. So I went to the competing high school. I went to Carl Gables. He was at Edison.
But you guys never
we didn't know each other then, no.
Yeah.
He was in North Miami. I was down in South Miami.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, but how wild is it that you guys went to high school opposing high schools, right?
Yeah.
And then years later meet in Colorado for veritable shenanigans day in and day out.
Yeah.
From the very first time I stepped off the plane, it was the first person I saw was Gregg.
Like, that's hilarious to me. Like the chances of that happening is just astronomical, right?
True.
That's like some like horrible like romantic drama stuff where it's like we grew up in the same town but we didn't meet until Florence, Italy, or whatever the shitty premise is.
Well, this is the thing. Like, so growing up, I was the biggest guy in my school, right? Like, I was 6'2", 350 pounds, built like a linebacker. Like, I was just a huge guy. There was a couple guys that were taller than me, but they were very thin. Yeah. There was 2 guys who were fatter than me, but they were very short, so they were just a circle.
Yeah, you were.
Did you play football?
No, we didn't have a football team. And the one year that I went out, I went to the football. It was another school, and it was all farm kids. And I was like, perfect. So I walk onto the field, and half of these guys I beat the shit out of, like, over the last 3 weeks at, like, barn fights and shit. So I walk in, and they're like, fuck, he's here. And I'm like,
here.
I'm like, hey, what are you homos doing here, right? Because back, it was the 80s. It was the 90s, right? So everyone was gay, and you're just like, you're gay, right? It's fine. Yeah. And sure enough, I brought my application. I'm like, oh, I wanted to join your football team. And they were like, wait, we're going to be on the same side? They're like, this is great. And then the teacher's like, you're a week late. I can't accept your application. I was like,
oh, no.
I'm like, shenanigans. And I just walked away. And there was like, oh, this is just stupid. And I'm like, I beat up half of your line. So whatever.
Where was that? Where did you grow up?
Toronto. So I was in, I'm in Canada. It's a weirdest thing. So I'm Greek. My parents migrated to Canada, so I was first generation here. So I'm like, I grew up amongst other immigrants, where I was like, now where I'm from, the city I grew up in is just all Indian people. So I'm like, it's a weird transition. Everything's kind of changed, right? But at the same time, I'm like, growing up, I'm like, I was the biggest guy. So like when I hear about people that I'm like, oh, did you not know that person? I'm like, they must have been a ghost, because there's no way I didn't know somebody I went to school with. But then it's like, you guys were at like opposing schools who would have heard about other people from other schools, and you never met. And then it's like halfway across the country, walk off an airplane and be like, hey man, hey, what's up? And everything changes.
Wait, did you have like a 6 degrees of separation thing? Like, oh, you knew Jenny, who knew Carl, who knew Jeff, who knew that kind of thing? Or
that used to happen a lot more when I was young, because there were definitely a lot less people in the world.
Oh, for sure.
You run into people that you knew all over. I ran into a girlfriend in Denmark. Just out of the blue.
Yeah.
Weird.
Wild. See, but that's the thing is, like, that's why it's a huge thing. You're like, oh, you have that last name and you're from that town. Oh, I know somebody. And like, there was always a way to connect to people, because you would know, like, oh, my dad's big in this industry. Oh, if you're in that industry, then you might know this guy from here. Whereas now you're like, everyone's just a stranger. You're like, I have no idea who anyone is. Like,
that's like that story I told with the grandparents running around impregnating everybody. Same thing.
Yeah. By the way, for people listening to this and being very confused, the episode, the part one, I guess, to this.
Part one, sure.
I'll leave in the description if you want to go check that out.
It is a hilarious series of events that Roger told us to get to the point of his friendship with Gregg, basically, and just it's hilarious, because I look back and I just think about like times that, like, shenanigans I had. Like, I still have a couple friends from grade 6. So I was 11 years old, and I still know them. Like, and we don't hang out much since the pandemic and stuff, but I'm like, we're in the same city. I'm like, we'll talk on the phone or send messages to each other regularly. So I'm like, it's a wild thing that you guys are, man, it's just, can you imagine that? Like, you go to school and you're like, oh, you went to the same area. Was there a point of realization where you guys realized that you guys went to opposing high schools, or no? Like, how soon off was it?
I don't know. We, after we started talking a little bit, you kind of put it all in perspective. But, if you want me to kind of go over certain aspects of, the horse-drawn days that Roger didn't cover in detail.
Yeah.
You might find these stories amusing, because in the fall of whatever it was, 72, when we decided to do the horse-drawn, sleigh and carriage business. One fall day, we got in Mickey's pickup truck, and our roommate Billy was smoking a cigar, and we had to meet the horse trader, Charlie, to take a look at our Percheron mares. And so Mickey blew out across a couple driveways and then shot right over a stop sign. And, it was
this is the mouse,
the
right?
Truck, and then all of a sudden it wasn't there.
Oh my God.
And then, we went to
Greg and you and I were sitting next to each other. We started hugging each other.
Okay. Then take that back. The Roger was there, and that Billy. So, Charlie showed us the Belle and Babe, the beautiful black Percherons. And, he walked us through how to put on the harnesses and how to do the lines, the reins, if you will.
Yeah.
And then, we practiced a little. And then the next day I went out to try it again. I said, I'm pulling on the line for the bell to turn right. And she didn't move. So I had to call Charlie, and I explained everything. And he said, son, you've got to put that line through the harness and into the bit so you can control the Belle and Babe. So I went out, I go, oh shit, because I was trying to pull the horses off of the harness.
Oh.
So I put it in their mouths, naturally it worked. So that gives you a perspective. You go, this person is going to run a horse-drawn sleigh carriage. So,
and he's probably like, what did I do? Why did I sell these horses?
Oh, no, we were undaunted. And, the next big event was New Year's Eve. We did find, a landlord, Frank, that had the barn. And so Mickey and I were seated in this huge wagon, and we were taking Frank's, grandchildren out for a ride in the early evening. And all of a sudden, the wagon kind of tilted slightly, and it went down, and you could hear the screams of all these little children.
Oh my God.
And, mercifully, when the wagon hit the ground, the kids were okay. But Babe and Bill bolted across this field.
Oh, no.
So, after I checked the children were okay, I went over, and standing next to Bill and Babe was Mickey. And he was being consoled by this really beautiful girl. And I just looked in amazement. I said, Mickey wasn't too concerned about the event, so that was a major hurdle. And then the next major thing, I think the last session we described when Roger took the trip in January and everyone was so cold, their teeth were chattering and begging to return. So, slightly after that trip, one early morning, we get a call from the woman next to the barn, and she goes, I think you boys ought to come over to the barn. And Babe and Bill Fold, we had two little, babies, if you will. And that effectively, shut down the operation.
Oh.
So babies will do that.
Let me tell you about that one ride, though. I'm sitting there. It was a clear, beautiful day in Aspen, crystal clear, but it was about 20 below zero. And he had blankets on the customers, and they were begging him to take them back. They were so cold. And he said, no, you paid for this. You got to keep going.
Yeah.
So Greg just kept driving around. They were like shivering in the back.
God,
I was just cracking up in the front seat next to him.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what else are you gonna do? You're just like, I'm sorry, you paid for it. We gotta go.
Yeah.
Now, was a marble rye involved in all of that?
Well, that was. I guess Roger did touch on the Red Bird, which was a carriage horse, and the way that. We gained a carriage horse because we were dead in the water. We couldn't do anything. The foals couldn't follow their mothers through town.
Yeah.
So a friend of Mickey's, this attorney, he calls up Charlie. And he goes, Charlie, you sold those boys pregnant mares. And so to make amends, Charlie said, well, I'm going to give these boys my carriage horse, Red Bird.
The sketchiest animal alive.
Yeah. And I may have mentioned it, but it bears repeating. Charlie said, boys, Redbird's been abused about the head. So whatever you do, don't tie him up. So that was all well and good until I had the carriage with Redbird in town and I was distracted. I tied him to a sign or a post rather, and he bolted. And all I could remember was the carriage being dragged down a couple blocks to the east. God. And that effectively really shut down the operation.
It was really funny. It was so funny.
Yeah, so that's kind of the complete story of the Pitkin County Sleigh Carriage in Rickshaw. Raj has a copy of our poster.
I feel like you guys needed shirts. Like that was definitely
You needed a better merch operation.
Logo. It's such a good logo. It had Gale on it.
Yeah, well, that would have tipped our creditors off to us. So I don't know. It's a good thought, though.
I need a picture of that logo because we're putting it on our merch. I swear to God, like that's got to happen.
Our non-existent merch.
No, I'll say Roger's got it. He can forward it to you.
No, I don't. I don't know if I can find it anymore. So
I'll send it. I'll send it again. Also, I sent a picture of myself with the Slovenian women's alpine ski team clad in bathing suits, bikinis, if you will, on top of Aspen Mountain.
Oh my God.
For your edification, I thought you might like that.
Please. For the love of God, please send that through. Please. Listen, see, this is the difference, okay? Is now people have to, everything's at everyone's fingertips. You're like, no. To get a picture like that, do you understand what kind of life you had? You had to go find those models, people.
You had to put them on the chairlifts without clothes, I guess, and then go up to the top of the. Or are they wearing like a blanket?
Yeah, no, people would streak on skis in the spring. Remember?
No, the way this happened was when I got off the top of the gondola, I'll never forget this. I looked to the right and I saw these little guys, 13 and 14, and they were taking their picture with these women. There's about 6 or 7 of them. Jesus. And so it was just like, like manna from heaven. You go, wow, I've never 100%. Seen anything like this.
No.
So anyway,
that's so fucking funny.
But that's the difference. It's like it just didn't like the chance of those kind of things happen. Like, so I remember this is one of those things where it's like you can't plan that kind of stuff. You're like,
oh no.
Now that everything's on the internet, you're like, oh well, I'll just check Instagram. Oh, there's gonna be a thing here, and I'm just gonna go show up. You're like, you had to like know a person who heard from somebody, and then it may all get canceled, and you just be out there in the cold waiting for nothing, right? Like, these are the directions to get to a place. Listen, you're gonna go down a ways. You're gonna see this barn. It's not a nice barn, but it's a distinctly red color. That's where you turn. It's important that you turn there, or otherwise you might die. And you're like, yeah, I'll find it, no problem. You get there, no problem. Be fine.
They tried tying the horse up in front of it, but he's gone. So don't.
Yeah.
He bolted. He just took on. Yeah, it's a crazy. Like I'm loving these stories because like my parents. And out here, maybe you guys can shed some light on this. I've asked my parents for stories from when they were young, and I get jack shit. They're like, nah, you don't need to know that information. That's none of your business. And I'm like,
okay.
I want to know what happened, right? But sure enough, that's why I'm like, oh, hearing stories about this kind of stuff, and I'm like, I can only imagine the shenanigans that my parents got into. But it's just, because I'm like, my dad just moved countries, and I'm like, bro, you don't just get up and move countries just because, let's see what happens. Like, there's got to be a story.
It's been one of my favorite parts of my 20s, now 30s, is hearing the stuff that you and mom didn't tell me because I was a child, right? It's interesting.
Roger, maybe I should tell Atlas the story of, this is the Wimpy Burger story from Paris in 1968. And I told it to him when he was in middle school.
Oh God, I wouldn't remember.
And at the end, he was prying me for the lurid details of the story, which of course,
I don't remember the story Anyway, middle school, I might as well have been drunk the entire time.
Yeah, well, I'll go into it.
All right.
I was a student in Rome in 1967, 68, and it was up in Paris in the spring. And, there was a Wimpy Burger, kind of like McDonald's near my hotel. So I went in, took a seat at a little two-top table, and shortly thereafter, these French schoolgirls came in. The pleated skirts, the knee socks, the blazers, etc.
Yeah.
One uglier than the next. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I look up, and there's this apparition. There's this young girl. She has porcelain white skin, blue eyes, black hair, tall, with a beautiful body. And she asks me if she can sit down. Well, that was a rhetorical question, as we all know. Yeah. And we got to know one another. And we went back to my pension. And then, of course, I got to know her biblically.
Jesus.
And way back when, I told the same exact story. Atlas was pressing for the lurid details.
Of course.
And I still will refuse. I don't know if I can remember that far to tell them, but that is a good example of divine providence, divine intervention.
Sure.
Yeah. I know it's not a religious program, but that was beyond coincidental.
Look, those are the kind of things that happen.
Greg and I also used to go to the French Alps every year.
Oh, geez.
Do a lot of skiing, so we have a lot of stories from those days.
Please, but first, you met her at a Wimpy Burger. You said
that's right, a Wimpy Burger.
So what you're saying now? When she sat down, did you say, "I will gladly pay you Tuesday for some pussy today"?
Oh no, this was maybe I threw a couple French words out there, but one thing led to the next, and I've never had anything similar happen in my life. That was the apex.
No, but you need one of those, and you're like, okay, now I know what we're all here for. It's for those kind of experiences. Let's move forward, right? Like that's.
Oh yeah.
Right, and that's. Yeah. It's a weird type of situation where, like, you experience kind of crazy things like that, but it's like you just had to go and do things. Also, to Atlas, I should point out, is that places like Wimpy's and stuff are not treated the same way as they are in North America. Like, it's like an event because it's actually quite expensive normally if you were to go there, right? So it was a prestigious thing. Also, too, the fact that she surrounded herself by uggos, you're like, listen, I kind of wanted that story to go. So I wake up 6 hours later, one of my kidneys is gone. I've been robbed of everything, and I'm like, totally worth it. Still totally worth. Every man would still go. I'd still go for it. Yeah,
that would be.
Yeah, I think you're thinking about Brazil, not France, because I did
100%.
I did have those misgivings when I visited Rio.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you're also like, where's the Wimpies around here? Because I have a theory to test in every country now.
But that's the line, right? Yeah. The glad you pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. That is
okay. Yeah.
All right.
That is Wimpies.
I wanted to make sure I got that right.
Greg's a natural linguist. He can know like 3 words of a language, and he still can talk to them in that language. Wow. It's amazing.
I hope so.
He's had a lot of girls, different.
Every day he goes on Duolingo, and the owl is like, all right, you win. You're better at this than me.
Like, realistically, though, you had to have game back then. Like, you had to try and learn a couple words of the local tongue. You're like, I gotta say something to these broads. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, Greg was a big hunk when he was young. Still good looking.
Well, I didn't really know that much French. It was "Où est le ski lift" in Val d'Isère. Where are the lifts? But other than that, I really didn't know much.
Yeah, but you did well in Spanish. Remember those Brazilian girls we had?
Oh yeah.
Would that be
two sisters?
It's close. Put it that way.
I see. So. Yeah,
close enough. Oh God.
We have untapped number of stories.
Please.
So are we on for half an hour or an hour?
An hour.
An hour normally. Now here,
you guys want to hear the Frescotti story?
Hold on, before we do that, Greg, I want to ask this: is how did you end up in Colorado?
That's a good question.
I'll tell you how I ended up in Colorado. I really basically just heard about it from some guy. I think I was in Austria ski bumming, working for a lift company.
Right on.
And this guy just went on and on about, Aspen. And so when I eventually came back to the States, I said, I'm going to Aspen. And, I never looked back, and I was very happy that I went there. It was, a magic place, really.
Greg's sister Gail sent me a text the other day. She said, we were there at a magical time.
Right. Yeah. Well, you were there just before it became crazy popular, and just you were just there where you could still enjoy it for what it was. Right?
Yeah, you could still afford to live in town. You can't live in town now if you work.
Yeah. No, we were lucky because I say the first year, of course, when I met Raj, I just worked as a dishwasher on a mountaintop restaurant to be able to ski. But things had changed very quickly. And then 2 years later, the lift pass was beyond the reach of most locals. And I think that's when Roger mentioned, I had the little video company. And I got the ski passes. So, but, this is an interesting story, like going way back in time. And I think I mentioned this. There was some guy that grew up in Aspen. He said, hey, during the winter, we just rented Victorian houses for $50 a month. Think about that.
In the west end of town, which are now $10 a piece.
Yeah, $50 a month. And the ski pass was, $100 here or there. And and then at the end of and it was like a true ski bum paradise. At the end of the season, they just went to Mexico.
Yeah.
So, that point in time had left, but it was still, a great place.
Oh yeah.
It's one of the highlights of my life, I can say.
Yeah.
The time I spent there. It was really great.
I mean, that's the great part is you got there, it was lightning in a bottle, right? You caught lightning and you were able to enjoy it at that peak moment, which veritably you shouldn't have had any fun whatsoever. And you're like, this was the greatest time. You were able to enjoy yourself, provide for yourself, do what you love, but at the same time, create friendships and experience parts of life that people would die to experience now. It's like a great thing.
And for me, I was working on a PhD and I just took off. If I had finished the PhD, I never would have got a chance to do that because you can't get a job after that.
See, and that's the weird part is that there was you guys realized that was, you knew that you had to get more life in before you had to start your real life.
Exactly.
I gotta go do stuff so I can enjoy the rest of my life. Otherwise, I'm gonna keep on wondering what could have been.
But with skiing, it's not just that you're having a great time. It's that when you pass through a winter or two, you would never be able to reach that level of skiing proficiency that then allows you, as Raj said, you just go to Val d'Isere or wherever, and you can literally pick up at more or less the same level. And that's, people don't realize that, but there's definitely something to that,
Well, so I was talking about this with my wife today. I was like, I need to start practicing on doing something, just because people have learned skills through, I can speak publicly and I tell jokes on stage and stuff like that, but I'm like, I need a physical hobby now that I've lost all this weight to do. And it's because there are people I used to ski when I was younger, but then I was like, no, if I fall down at how fat I was, I'm like, I will die there. So I stopped skiing, but now I'm kind of I may start skiing again because I'm like, I had so much fun doing that kind of stuff. But it's it's one of those things where you put in a couple years of work and you're that will change your skill set for the rest of your life. You'll always be able to pick something like that up again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, when I arrived in Aspen, I was an intermediate skier at best. And the first year I skied 110 days out of 130 days season. And by the end, I could ski anything.
Yeah.
Just we got better from there. But it's hard to do it when you live in a city. You go up maybe 40 times a year.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, Alice and his sister, we took them a lot up skiing, and they've become really good.
Yeah.
Then I tried snowboarding, and then the last time I went skiing, where it was just Phoebe and I, or snowboarding, I guess, I had gotten heavier / fatter to the point where falling fucking hurts, dude. I'm going back to skiing.
Oh yeah.
I learned it with Phoebe, and I couldn't stand snowboarding except if you were on powder.
Yeah, I'm done with it. Next time I go up to snow, I'm skiing. Like I can't at this point. Yeah.
Well, this is the thing is, like, I remember because I'm in Toronto and I grew up in the suburbs of Toronto. So like we would go, we would have school trips and we would go skiing and stuff. And it was a great, there are a couple mountains, they're not big, but they're okay in our area. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, it's fun to go. Like, it's an enjoyable thing. Not this past winter, the winter before, was the first time I ever went tubing, which I'm like, that was super fun. Like, it was very relaxed, but also it was fun to go down a hill at that speed again, because I go down a hill and I just kind of and just go down and I'm like and stop at the end. I'm like, all right, no problem, you know? So going that fast down a hill again, oh, it's exhilarating, right?
Have you ever skied the CNN Tower in Toronto?
No.
That'd be tough.
People have asked me to go climb it, to go up the stairs. They do fundraisers, and I'm like, no, I'll take the elevator because that's insane. But,
have you seen the edge walk where they walk around the outside?
Oh yeah,
that's really insane.
So
I can see a picture of this.
I'm at a weight where I can actually go on the hanging thing where you can hang out off the ledge, because you had to be under 300 pounds, and now I'm 250 pounds, so I'm like, I can do it. They even have an indoor skydiving facility close to my house. I want to try it, because I'm like, I don't want to go skydiving because that seems quite reckless. But indoor skydiving, I'm like, I want to try the idea of being weightless. I'm like, I think that's cool. Mm-hmm. And now I'm moderately fat enough that I can do it. You know.
Yeah, but they'll need a gigantic fan to get you up in the air, I think.
Yeah. So it's a tube. So you put on gear and everything, but it's a tube with just a massive fan underneath, and it just levitates you. So,
okay.
What's up, Joey? 250 on what scale? Oh, I went to that guy Joey's house in Ohio, and he shenanigans his scale to be 40 pounds over, and I'm like, man, it was.
What, just to mess with people?
Me and Cole were almost 300 pounds, and he's like, "Oh, you guys are so fat." I'm like, "This is bullshit. I know how much I weigh."
Yeah.
Indoor skydiving is just falling off a balcony at 5-star. I mean, as long as there's a pool at the bottom, it's not bad.
Yeah. Your points? They don't provide parachutes, though. They don't need to.
No.
They
No. That's why I'm like, listen, I like the idea of I love going on roller coasters and stuff. And I'm like, now I can actually fit in a roller coaster again.
Right.
I didn't fit. We went to Universal Studios and I couldn't fit on one ride, but it was because my shoulders were too big. And I'm like, my shoulders of all things. Jesus Christ.
That's one of those things where you're just like, okay, at least that's not anything I can control.
Have any of the three of you ever jumped out of the plane with a parachute?
No.
I haven't either. I don't want to die having fun.
I right? That just seems you're that's too much. That's a little reckless, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. Mind you, at the same time, having seen people get hurt skiing, and I'm like, the amount that you guys went skiing, that terrifies me now, where I'm like, I kind of want to do it again just because I'm in better shape, but also I see some of it, I'm like, so scary.
A lot of people die skiing. It's pretty easy too.
Yeah.
You hit a tree at those speeds, that's the end of you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then it's also who you're skiing with. Like, did you guys ever just go by yourselves and then you ran into people? And
oh yeah, all
did
the
you usually
time
go
in Aspen.
Aspen?
Yeah, definitely.
Greg, you were just doing that a couple of weeks ago, right?
Yeah, I went to Canada. I went to Lake Louise. I was trying to lure my sister Gail. I'll have to send you guys some photos.
Absolutely.
We have a couple, but yeah.
I sent a couple of to me.
Oh, that's good. We had gone on a trip previously, and she couldn't make it, but I did go to Lake Louise, and then an area called Kicking Horse, which is kind of a death-defying area, and then another place, Revelstoke. So Canada's quite, it's quite spectacular.
Freezing. It's freezing up there.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I went late. I went in March, and people basically said, if you want the powder, you've got to come in January, and it is freezing then, but you get a lot of powder.
Yeah. No, so because I've never actually been to the west coast of Canada. So I'm like, but I've heard that the skiing is fantastic. Like it's just because the Rockies are a proper mountain, right? Like there's tons
of the bugaboos, up there where there's no tracks. You take helicopters up.
Yeah, which you're like, that's fucking cool, right? Like have you guys done that before? Like
I did.
Yeah, I did.
That's cool.
I did it one time.
That's like how on a scale, like how scary was that? The scary part, or was going down the hill the scary part? Dropping from the helicopter, was it like not that bad, or
it's not that bad?
No,
you just jump down.
Yeah, like it's fucking cool.
Like the concept is scarier than the actual execution of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Although when you go up in the helicopter, you're just praying that it keeps working.
Yeah.
100%. That's fair. That's thanks, Joey. Canada is cold, boring America. I mean, basically, you're pretty accurate. It's not.
No, it's Western Canada is absolutely spectacular.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have, let's just say, if you have maybe 3 weeks, you could go up, rent a car. You could also go in a camper, which is really, I saw some Germans doing that. It is so beautiful in Western Canada, and other than Lake Louise, it's not really overly crowded. It's
yeah.
You can also go to Whistler and
that's another, let alone Whistler.
Spectacular up there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's easy to get to too.
You can go to the South Cowichan Lawn Tennis Club in Victoria and play a little tennis on the grass. Dive like Boris Becker used to for a volley.
I mean,
Greg's a good tennis player.
See, this is the thing, is that like this is the problem with Canada, is that it's cheaper for me to go on a week-long all-inclusive to Mexico from Toronto than it is for me to fly to Vancouver.
Oh, I've heard stories. Yeah, I've heard stories from other Canadians. That's sad. Yeah,
it's the dumbest shit possible. And the worst part is you're like, okay, well maybe you could do it cheaply if you like took a train or something. No. It's still expensive. You want to drive? No. Still expensive.
That's sad.
It's further than going to Florida than it is for to go to Vancouver. I'm like, why would I do that? That's stupid. I'm like, it's not a scenic drive. It's just flat and then fucking mountains. Like it's
that is correct. You have to.
After Calgary, it's all mountains.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Too bad.
I have, and that's the one frustrating thing about Canada. Like I know my brother used to go to he went to Mount Tremblant a couple times, but then he went to Mount St. Anne, and that is where he would have a lot more fun because there would be less people, and that's in Quebec. And they had a few nice areas because they even had areas where you could go snowmobiling as well as skiing too. Like it was a whole big thing.
I've skied Mount Tremblant. It's not a bad place.
No,
it's in the east. It's not that big, but
yeah. Well, that's the thing, is all the mountains on the East Coast, just they're not as big. They just can't compete to the Rockies, right? Like this.
You know what it is, when you reach a certain age, it's prohibited to go there, because if you go down, it's beyond a hip pointer. You could break your hip on the glare ice. Really, I mean, they're very icy there.
Yeah. So Gregg, you just recently went skiing. How do you find it? Like, because you just said you turned 77, right?
Yeah.
So how do you like? Are you still comfortable, or are you a little less daring? Like, how do you find it?
Well, I think the main thing, really, honestly, I didn't know if I'd be able to get down a kicking horse because the bowls were all like double black and black diamond. But honestly, I went down one mogul to run. I may have told you about. Maybe it was 30 or 40 yards steep, but the snow was soft.
Yeah.
And that made all the difference in the world. I then went down foolishly and it was icy and I had to side slip it. But, at 76 or 7 or whatever, there's the number one rule is do not go down. Period.
Yeah.
Ever. And, I didn't fall on the trip at all. And that's the way you want to keep it. And, you just have to be realistic and say, I think I'll stay away from this run or that run. It's just the way it is.
Just know your limits, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I feel like that's a reasonable thing though at all times, like that's that idea where people are like, I'm invincible. You're like, no, you're not. We're all invincible. We are all just one bad step away from shit going down. And it's like, you can do nothing wrong and shit can just get you. Right.
Yeah. And, as Roger said, I ski alone all the time. And of course, on this trip, I skied alone. And another thing, I had an old college roommate and he goes, man, I don't know if I can keep doing this. He was attempting to follow his 22-year-old son in Vail.
No.
And you have to ski at your own pace. That is another law, immutable.
Jeez.
Yeah. Like I feel like that's only fair though. Like it's not unreasonable because like, look, there's a time when you can be adventurous where like, listen, your body is just tougher. But at the same time, like even now, I made this joke on stage where I'm like, I'm 44 and in the best shape of my life. I kind of want to throw hands with somebody, but at the same time, I don't want to be an old man, get my ass kicked by some young guy.
Yeah,
like I'm just, so you're just going, you know what, whatever. That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't need it.
It's kind of the same thing as a teacher where like Dad was saying earlier, how you see yourself versus what you look at in the mirror is different. And I still kind of see myself as like an 18, 19-year-old until I look in the mirror. I found my first gray hair yesterday. Did I tell you guys that?
Get rid of it.
I did.
Get rid of it.
It was right up here at the point of the widow's peak. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And tomorrow it's your whole head.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh God.
But just the thing where like playing the disciplinarian with my students were like, I can't be like too aggressive because then they'll get aggressive and then they'll kick my ass. You have to like let the veneer, the reputation do the work for you.
And that's like, but that's the thing is you learn over time.
Mm-hmm.
You pick your battles and you go, okay, hey, if you wanted that, like I have had people who are like, well, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I just smacked the shit out of you. I just like, you look at them and you're like, you know what? My bad. I'll walk away. That's okay. No problem. But at the same time, you got that thing in you where you're going, you young piece of shit. I kicked the shit out of you so fast. But then you're like,
maybe I wouldn't, maybe I get mad.
Then they say, yeah, okay, old man.
You know what? Like, this is the hard part is that I'm like, I've always looked older than I have been. And now I'm like, all right. I'm like, I got gray hair. I'm bald. And I'm like, look at my beard is all gray. And I'm like, I'm just an old man. That's it. That's fine. But I'm like,
I was 50 years old and some 20-year-old called me Pops.
Oh God.
That's awesome.
So the other day I went out.
Wait, Dad, when was this that happened?
I was about 50. I was just some random guy. He said, hey, Pops, you're going to move over.
God.
The good thing is, if you were 50, then this was in the early 2000s. That guy is now in his 40s, and he has some sort of something going on with him where he's like, oh, God.
Bro, listen.
Somebody's calling him Pops, too.
Yeah, someone's calling him OK Boomer, The
other day, I went out for lunch with two of my brothers, and my one brother, who's 12 years older than I am, has gray hair. So he has a beard. It's all white. His hair is all white. Everything's white. And I'm like, oh, you look so old. He's like, shut up. And I'm like, oh, you're an old man. He's like, well, you're bald. And I'm like, that's fine, but you're old, you know?
At least I'm not delivering gifts to good children every December 25th.
Bro, hey, and it was not one bit of brown hair, just all white. And I was like, man, that's it. That's gone. No, you ain't getting that color back, buddy. It's over. You know?
I don't know. Katie's all excited for me to eventually need reading glasses. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
You look like you should have reading. You look like you should have reading glasses more than your dad does. Your dad looks like he should have those pilot goggles. That he's like, and he's like on a motorcycle. That's how your dad.
Exactly.
You made it sound like aviator glasses. I was imagining like a World War I flying ace.
Hey, no, the World War I ones, because he'd be on a motorcycle and have a sidecar, and he's like, "This is where I keep my bitches," and just off he would go. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, don't worry, Greg. You look like a fancy spy, so don't think you're getting away with anything, sir.
Oh yeah,
okay?
yeah. Well,
Oh man,
you definitely look like you're like, oh well, you know, I traded secrets with the Russians once. It's fine. They got the bad end of that deal. It's fine. So
that's actually what Gregg was like too.
I have to say, you know, for the record, I have not imitated Kim Philby or Guy Burgess or any of those people. So.
If anyone knows.
Oh, I got it. I don't know if our listeners would, but
100%. Listen, man, these are great stories. And Gregg, Roger, thank you so much for sharing them with us, because honestly, it's the idea is that like life was just like a movie, just because as long as you just went out and did shit, right? Mm-hmm. Like you just like, all right, let's just go out and do shit. It's just,
you know what's so great is you wake up in the morning and ask me, you go, what am I going to do today after I ski?
I ski.
You got to figure out some way to get into trouble.
Which is a wild concept where you're just like, what do I do after I do the coolest thing you could do? Be like, how do I top that with the rest of my day? And Greg's like, bikini models. This is going to be a good day.
Well, it was always associated with scamming babes. Every day.
Oh yeah, that's
We're trying to figure out how to procure more and more.
Roger, I have a term in Aspen for a certain type of woman. I call them the 4 o'clockers. And when you got off the ski lift at around 4, you'd see these beautiful women, elegantly dressed, and they're all walking towards the center of town, right near the ski lift. And that's what awaits you after skiing.
Oh,
exactly. And we'd all hit the bars afterwards.
Yeah, and the 70s just seemed so
prey
fun.
On the tourists. The locals would prey on the tourists.
100%.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
That's like literally there are movies that it's like, it's just a night in Colorado with these guys just fucking around. But you're like, this is hilarious. And also, how many times did you want to pull up in a horse and just be like, I just rode a horse and picked broads up? You're just like,
oh yeah,
that's totally reasonable.
Point. But you know, back in Telluride, this is around 1970.
Yeah.
At the Roma bar, somebody rode a horse into the bar.
Into the bar.
Yeah, into the bar.
Okay,
so it's not that far fetched.
Not up to the bar, inside the bar.
Inside the bar. Granted, there weren't too many women tourists inside. You know, you can imagine who was in there.
Hey, tell them about the horse in Banff that rode in.
Raj and I went to Banff, you know, for Christmas week, and the big social event at the Banff Springs Hotel. It had a huge interior lobby area. It was marble floor. And they had these 2 riders on horseback.
They were Mounties.
Mounties. Intended just to come in and just basically walk around the room. The only problem was the horses had a problem balancing on the marble. And their hooves were kind of slipping.
Oh, no.
So they had to just, strain to keep their balance, and they got them out of there quicker than they anticipated.
Yeah, but remember when they the horse hit the table and started a chain reaction?
Oh, God, that I forgot. Oh, well, that's better.
Tables fell down with glass smashing and everything.
Domino.
It was so funny. Because he reared up. The horse got scared and reared up.
Oh,
God.
All right.
That part I could.
Oh, that's fantastic. So everyone knows if you want the licensing for these stories, you're going to have to contact Atlas, and Atlas is going to act as a.
But
hey, you have to be the one in the middle, okay? You're the contact person. It's only fair.
Yeah.
Because this shit is absolutely bonkers.
Yeah. If you want to hear more of the Aspen Chronicles, I guess I'm going to call them.
I mean, yeah.
Please leave a like, leave a comment below, and we'd love to have you guys back.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Oh, Greg, thank you for making the time.
We haven't even tapped yet.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, thanks. It was a great way to spend the morning. I really enjoyed, talking with you.
Yeah, you did a great job, Greg. I loved it.
Thank you.
Probably a lost question, but I left the comment below. How are you? A moot question. Do you do social media? Can people find or follow you?
No, I really don't.
Okay,
This is the first thing I've participated in.
Good.
So
good.
You have an exclusivity, if you will.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, good.
Although Greg and I will do live stage shows.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
There is a better likelihood of that kicking off than anything else here. That's
exactly
how it is.
I don't know. I was on Friday. I left school to go get a burger because I hadn't eaten all day, and I walked past the front of the school, and they're blasting Iron Maiden while the kids are getting picked up, and I was like, "This is awesome." Yay for Friday.
I hate to say that. I'm I'm addicted to Metallica now. I can't stop listening.
Oh no.
Master, I keep going. Master of Puppets.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I don't know. I gotta say, it seems like it would be a fun time to put on a big pair of headphones, sit in a beanbag chair, and listen to Orion. Oh yeah.
Listen. Yeah. You bust out your vape or whatever you got, throw on your headphones, and just boom. That's how you spend a Sunday, everyone.
Smoke them if you got them. Anyway, you can follow us at Generation Dan in all the places.
Yeah, everywhere.
You can also check out the other show on both this channel and the same RSS feed if you're subscribed. Last Minute History. Our last episode was about Victorian shoplifting gangs, and this Monday we'll be talking about the California Gold Rush because I had to learn it in school, and now so do you. So that'll be fun. Follow me at Atlas Novak and all those places, or my other podcast, Nexus at Nights. How about you, Dino?
You guys are great. Thank you.
No problem. Dino the Genetic Marvel. Also, too, I put my name in a hat for I think it's a favorite chef or home chef, something with Carla Hall. So if you go to my Instagram, it's on there, or Facebook, and you can check it out, guys, and you can vote and put me in there. I don't even know why I did it, but still. Also, check out Hammered and Cheese on Tuesdays, Mondays, Life with Giants, and we're doing all sorts of crazy shit this summer. It should be fun. Anyways, have a wonderful evening, everyone, and we will be back soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.